Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Ground Up Podcast. My name is Matt Walton, here with my co-host, Matt Huber. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Good. You got the nice shirt on?
Yeah, I had another meeting earlier, so I actually got dressed up today. Chris, normally I'm a t-shirt, maybe ball cap type of guy. I think that's one of the advantages of doing your own thing. You get to kind of dress how you choose. I have another guy I do another podcast with, and he's one of those dress to impress every chance he can. He's a full suit. And every time we get on the podcast, he's like, Matt, I need you to bring and deliver a little bit more of a professional look. Matt, on the other hand, loves the t-shirt casual look. So I'm kind of stuck between two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, we're not going to ask about the shorts you have on underneath.
I do have on shorts. I don't want to talk about that. I'm not going to stand out.
Yeah, and Chris, nice to meet you, Chris. We were talking a little bit beforehand. I want you to give an introduction to yourself. You came with the shirt on, the button up also to match with Matt. I feel out of place now to go halfway through this episode and get myself a nice shirt on.
Yeah, I actually had my jacket on earlier too, but
you didn't want to make me feel bad by being overdressed, me being way underdressed, and you being way okay. Gotcha. Yeah, we could add underdressed, just casual, and then overdressed a little bit too.
Yeah,
we could do that. Awesome. Well, Chris, you've done from what we heard so far, you've done a lot of things in the dealership space. Not only creating multiple products on your own, but then selling a product also, getting back into the dealership world. Can you give us a little rundown about your experience here of going back to when you started in dealerships and to where you are now?
Yeah, I actually started the business at CarMax. This was 22 and a half years ago. And it was, for me, that was like real foundational stuff because when I started there, they had 30 stores. When I left, they had a little over 114 stores. So I had an opportunity to kind of go and open up 5 different stores and see what that looked like when they new market entry, see what it was like with job fairs and part of, my role there, I was on an individual development plan where they said, hey, Chris, we want you to be a general manager one day and we want you to go through this process. And so I had to spend 6 months in service, 6 months in acquisition, 6 months in the business office and role playing and seeing how they interacted and doing their actual job and seeing the whole thing, right? I had to fly to Atlanta at their finance division, CarMax Auto Finance, to figure out how they got people approved, what they looked at in advance and debt to income, payment to, they had to do all of that for 3 months to figure out what it was like on their side. And so everything that I've applied over the last 22 and a half years in this business, it's really started because when I started there, and I was there for about 6 years and did it was a great experience for me. And
now, what got you? Try to cut you off in the middle. What got you on that path of being a general manager that put you on? Was it just because you crushed it in sales over there? Or did you express?
I actually got promoted to a sales manager relatively quickly. And what's amazing about I was 22 when I started, just shy of my 23rd birthday, and by the end of the year, I was already in the process of becoming a sales manager there. I sold a lot of cars pretty quickly, but to actually get to become a sales manager, it's a pretty involved process. You got to fly out to Dallas, and there was a round table of general managers, and you had to do 4 interviews and talk to, it was just like a group interview, 4 interviews, 4 general managers in each group. And then you had the RVP and vice presidents there, and they all had to interview you to see if you were going to be a good fit to be a sales manager. And I was like, 23 years old, you're like, okay, let's do it. Right. And, I did it and became a sales manager for, a long time there. And I did well. I think once I realized, I started hearing conversations of what it was like outside of the industry or the organization I was in, and realized, man, there's opportunity out there that, you can do a little bit more financially. Right. And so that's when I went to Universal Toyota here in San Antonio and figured out quickly, like, man, I was, making okay money, but as a salesperson, I went back to the sales floor and was making a lot of money. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Right.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sell cars. I'm selling 30 plus cars a month. I'm making good money. I'm like, man, first month I made over 20 grand. I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. You got to think I came from, humble beginnings, single mom, the whole thing, food stamps, all that stuff. And to see that kind of money at a young age, it's life changing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's one thing I've always loved about sales. I mean, Chris, my background sounds like it's fairly similar to yours. I grew up also single mother, two little sisters. We didn't grow up with a lot of money. I was never the smartest guy in the class. College was never in my plan. I was always taught how to be a hard worker. That was never a problem for me. But I didn't have that traditional vehicle of education in my back pocket and in my long-term future. And I think that the self-realization of that in the avenue of sales became something that immediately was something I chased. I mean, probably like you, Chris, it sounds like you had a lot of success early. I remember at 18, leaving high school, getting my first full-time job in sales. I worked in actually doing collections at Capital One. I was making twice as much money at 18 than my mother had ever made in her career, and had a master's degree in education and had been a teacher for 20 years. And she's so much more intelligent, so much more articulate. But at 18, I was already making more money because of the vehicle of sales. And for me, I love your story, and that so young, without this like major background, you found a vehicle of success and financial freedom, and you took advantage of it. That's kind of the way you look at it, right?
100%. Yeah. It was just one of those things that I never, you kind of stumbled on it. I was on my way to move to Las Vegas. I have an aunt and uncle out there, and I was going to work for my uncle, 22 years old. I was like, he works construction. I didn't go to college. I went to college for a brief time, and I just felt like it was just a lot of things that I had already learned, and I just didn't understand, why am I going to pay to learn the same thing I just spent 4 years learning? And so I went with my uncle. And when I got there, first day there, my twin brother, he's already there. I tell him, man, I really don't want to work construction. And he's, well, why don't you go to this place? They've been trying to recruit me. And he was a property manager, like at an apartment place. And so they were trying to recruit him because he did such a good job with them to go work for CarMax. And he said, well, why don't you go try this company? It's called CarMax. I don't know what it is. Go take a look. They're trying to recruit me. You might get it. And so I went in his place, and that's the first thing I told him is I said, and it hadn't even been built yet, right? There was a hotel I went to go interview at. So I didn't even know what it was. And I go in there and I say, hey, look, you guys were trying to recruit my twin brother, but I'm the next best thing. And I think you guys need to hire me. And I just started talking to them, and they were like, they saw something in me and felt like it was a good opportunity for me to learn, and they hired me. And it was a good 6-year run I had with them, and I had a great experience with them.
Where's your twin brother now? What's he doing?
He's in real estate in Austin, Texas. Does really good. So,
you doing well with it?
Yeah, I recruited him, or I didn't recruit him. One of my business partner, when I was running or helping run a store in Austin, it was a Toyota store. My business partner, he recruited him, and he was my used car manager, used car director for, quite some time. And we crushed records and did all kinds of things. And then he decided he was going to go try the real estate thing. And he's been doing it for 5-6 years now. 6 years now. Yeah.
So for our audience that aren't from the automotive industry, and so everybody knows, my background comes from the automotive industry, and I know how impressive it is to be able to climb the competitive ladder of becoming a general manager at one of these dealerships. And in these dealerships, it's essentially like running a mid-sized business as a general manager of a store. You've got a lot of cases. An average store has 50 plus employees. Some of the larger stores have hundreds of employees. You're selling 300, 400, 500, and some stores are selling thousands of cars a month. And being a general manager is one of the most complicated jobs of understanding very different type of people, from salespeople, from service people, from the support side. There's a lot of type of people you have to be able to manage. So talk with me around your first couple of years of elevating into that general manager, and kind of maybe some of the biggest challenges you did once you gotten yourself into a position of running a store?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I've always kind of been in volume opportunities, right? Like, so CarMax, when I was there, when I first moved to San Antonio, they were doing, I want to say we were doing like 450 cars a month. And then we got to 700 used cars a month. And so being able to interact there, plus go and open up stores and do all that stuff, it was really, and jobs and job fairs and recruiting and, doing all the things necessary to staff a store. Like, it was not a big leap when I went to some of these smaller stores, but I started at CarMax doing 700 cars. Then I went to other stores where they were doing 1,500 cars a month, 1,000 cars a month, and seeing the operation and talking to people with that kind of experience, and then learning from them, because they would teach you. They actually are an organization that would actually teach you how to talk to people, because commission people versus hourly people, you kind of have to, adjust your tone and how you interact with them. And then when after CarMax, I went to Universal Toyota and saw that store go to 660 cars a month. And I was selling, 30 plus cars every month. And then from there, that's when the general manager became a buying partner at a Toyota store in Austin, and he took me with him. One other person, a really good mentor of mine, he took him with me. We went up there and they were doing 100 new, 50 used. And inside 4 years, we took it from 150 cars a month to over 1,000 cars a month. And so we got to see at every level what it took to, when you hit 300 and 500 and 7. And then once you go to 1,000, it's like you have these other blocks or like hurdles that you have to go through to overcome. And staffing a store that sells that many cars, selling 13,000 cars a year, I mean, it takes a lot. He gave me the opportunity to help him run that store, and we did some great things. And he's my business partner today. He's a great mentor of mine. The world of that gentleman named Jim DeMeo, great guy. And the other guy that he helped brought on board with me, and I respect that guy too. His name's Ty. What I learned from him is about putting the right team together, right? And at the end of the day, you're only as good as your team, because yes, process and all this other stuff is super important, but that team is, you get some A players with you. That's a difference maker for sure.
Yeah, your team, absolutely. And so I'm interested to know, because I went from working for other people to wanting to work for myself, because honestly, I couldn't stand to work for other people. Matt was actually an exception to that, because I wouldn't be working with them now if I didn't like working with them in the first place. But I'm always interested to know, like, you went from the dealership side, and now you started a company called AutoMiner. And
so I
then
built that out of that Toyota store in Austin.
right. And so obviously you probably saw a need that arose, and you're like, all right, this needs to be a product. And instead of, asking somebody else, you're like, let me take this on. So you kind of move into an entrepreneur side of things. So talk to us about that. When you started that up, what was the mindset you had going into it in the process of when you sold it?
So what happened was, I was in the process of trying to get to our customers more, because the first 90 days we were there, I had conversations with Toyota and different people, and they told me that, Chris, this store has such a huge opportunity. There's 20,000 units in operation. And I was like, wow, that's a huge opportunity. Okay, so how do I get those lists? And that's the first thing I asked, right? And nobody could. Try doing it today. It's the hardest thing to get out of a CRM, DMS. Try to find a list that you can get out of your CRM that targets people the way as a dealer or a car salesperson would call. And it's impossible. I'm still running into that today. Some point I want to integrate with the AutoMiner so that it can make my life a lot easier. But right now we're not there yet. So, that was the thing, let me pull some lists out. And then once you pull the list out, guess what happens? Email's wrong, phone number's incomplete. There's a lot of missing information. Data is probably the dirtiest thing you've ever seen in your life. And I said, you know what? I need to hire someone to do this. And so I first hired somebody and said, can you get the data? How do we do it? What's the easiest way to do it? Figured that out. And then about 90 days into it, I said, man, I need help, right? I can't do this by myself. And so I got with the owner and his son, and we partnered together and said, hey man, if we can make this work and do really well, maybe at some point we can take it to other people and they may have the same problem, and let's see if we can help them too. And so we started out trying to solve our problem first, and then we kind of went from there and were able to do it and did pretty well. We ended up, go ahead.
Before we go too far on that, because I think that's a huge thing that I would say that Matt and I, as entrepreneurs, we probably seen one of the biggest gaps in our employees is a lot of people can identify the problem, but then coming up with a solution is probably where the biggest gap is from somebody who can really kind of take to that next level. First and foremost, Chris, I mean, kudos to you to identify the gap, but then more importantly, to then provide a solution that makes sense internally. And I think the first step before you ever make a product that will be beneficial to others is to be able to implant that, as in no different then in order for you to be a great general manager at a store, you have to have at least understood how to run a service department, how to be a sales manager, how to be a general sales manager, how to be a finance manager. And until you've learned those things and you kind of knocked off all of the dust and worked out all of the kinks, then taking a product like the AutoMiner outside of your business, it's not going to resonate as much as when you can show how that tool and that product resonated specifically in your dealership and now going to the market. So I'd love to hear kind of that next evolution. First off, what type of lift did you see once you solved this problem? And then how did you take it from an internal product to an external solution? And what was your thought process around positioning it as you went to the market?
So, we initially, it was like the best BDC tool ever, right? Because right now you had a service BDC doing something, you had a sales BDC doing something. There's a lot of overlap in calling the same people. So then you'd have customers upset and say, hey, look, this guy's calling me. I'm just trying to get my service appointment. And so there was so much of that, right? So when initially that's how it started, but it's not what really gravitated towards a lot of dealers. Most dealers, believe it or not, they'll hire one or two people and they're okay. But this solved our problem selling as many cars as we're selling. And it helped us sell even more cars as a result of being able to identify different audiences and try to figure out how to get to these customers and bring them in. We're able to get these customers and have a better experience, right? Now, we had some other challenges when we said, okay, I'm going to go and start selling this to dealers, right?
Yep.
And so when you're talking to them like that, they're looking at you like, man, well, I don't know that I really have that. And so then how you position it, where initially the base of it was, let's clean the data, let's make it where you can reduce your ad spend. And we had all the integrations to Facebook, emails, SMS, all kinds of integrations that by the way, we also, because we cleaned and append all the data, we push it directly into these audiences in Google and everywhere, and it makes it easier. So I don't know if you guys have ever had to do that manually. You got to download a list, upload it, then you got to build it and do all this other stuff. The AutoMiner, just one button and it's already done. And so that was the big, like, oh wow, this is a way to not only segment audiences and do all that, but now we can, with automation, target these people in different like media, whether it's the CCTV or OTT and the Google audiences and all these other things. We can literally just push that and automate that seamlessly. And so that was kind of like the big deal. We initially had partnered with Grant Cardone to white label it. Great individual. He's got a great team. We just initially took it 10 ADA, did all that, but his partner was looking to go a different direction than what we felt like the vision was for our software. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up, deciding mutually to, go our separate ways. And I personally, my strong suit's always been inside the store. So when we did that, I decided, well, look, let's take 90 days. I'm going to go. I had been offered, a big chunk to like go and help out a group that needed some help. And so I went and I started talking with them. And during that transition, I came across a gentleman named Aaron Sheeks, which is a great friend of mine. And he was in between roles. And I talked to him and I said, man, well, why don't you come run the company? Because, that's not my strong suit. My strong suit's more inside the store. Why don't you you help me and we'll make you partners and do all that. And sure enough, he did an amazing job. And we're in a bunch of stores with that product. And he was a CEO with them for, last 3 years or so. And he did a really good job. And
Yeah.
without him, we wouldn't have been where we're at today.
Yeah, not only did you identify a problem, I think that a lot of people think like they need to come up with some crazy business idea and something that's just out there that no one's ever thought of and stuff like that before, but really it just comes with, hey, what problem can I solve? And how big is the problem that people are having? You found that problem, you've solved it, you found a solution for that, you use it for yourself, you found that this is great, and then you took it out there to other people. Then I think one of the biggest things you also did, which a lot of people don't have the knowledge to do, or even the maybe they have too big of an ego to not do it. And which is you found somebody else to step in and take over for the company because you knew what your spot was and where you needed to be, and that this person could help drive this company to where you needed to go. And I think a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people struggle with that and like understanding that, hey, they want to be the face of the company, the CEO of the company. They want to run everything about it, but there's somebody else who could take your company to another level that you just have to get them in place with that. I think that's, again, kudos to you again, because that's a big thing to do and a big step to take off. So also within it. So you got the product, you got it up and running, you got to build, you got the team, you got it into a bunch of stores, and then here comes Pure Car. How did this sale go? I'm interested to know about how that process went.
So, we just had
hold on, real quick. One question before we get to Pure Cars. Was there ever a point of funding externally prior to the acquisition by Pure Cars? Was it all self-funded?
Self-funded.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, I just want to make sure.
We completely bootstrapped the company. I didn't have that kind of money back then, and it was a big lift. But that's why I partnered up with the owner, and I've been partners with him for a long time. We got other entities that we're partners in, and him and his son are amazing partners. But reality is what it came down to, and how we even started. Like scaled it to a whole different level than when I tried. Initially, it was like, hey, let me see who I could partner with that already has sales experience, vendor business to business type thing. Because you don't know what you don't know, right? And when I decided, like, you know what, let's take this on ourselves, it was because I figured out a team, and it was my attorney, my CFO, CTO, the CEO, like all of the different people, the players that I knew we needed to make this successful. And I brought all of them on board and put them together and said, hey, look, this is the idea. My hope is that you guys can believe in the vision that I have. We all collectively came together, and everybody got, a fair share of the pie. And they helped me, and we helped each other, and we took it to a whole different level.
Yeah, it's something Matt and I have actually talked quite a bit about over the past couple of weeks. And just to give everybody an insight to Matt and I's business and the evolution of it in the first year and a half of us working together is when we first started, we brought in a lot of generalists. We brought in a lot of people who were hungry, who were motivated, but weren't specialists. And through that, we looked for people who were growth minded. We looked for people who valued loyalty, and they had the ability to go find problems and fill a bunch of holes. We're now at the point where we've established a really, really strong foundational team of loyal people who are very versatile in our business. And now the evolution of our staff building is to now bring in those specialists. So we're looking to bring in a marketing specialist. We're looking to bring in specialists around sales, specialists around gaps that we might have so that we can be free and clear to do the things in our business that allow us to truly grow. Yes, my background is sales. Matt's expertise is operations. But if we can bring in an operations specialist, an additional sales specialist, if we can bring in a marketing specialist, now we're able to cover the gaps with specialists in tandem of our versatile team that we have in place now. We anticipate we'll be able to grow to that level. So you already said putting the right team together was an expertise. And then you doubled down on that and said, making sure you brought in the right hires is really what it sounds like was the difference you did. So Chris, I'll ask you, how do you identify those right people? How do you identify those specialists to fill the gaps so that your time is free? Because that's something Matt and I are in the mission of doing within our business today.
I leaned heavily on my network, and I had a lot of conversations, and had those, and people tell me, hey, you might want to talk to this person. And I started just going and having conversations with a lot of people. And, over the years, I try to build relationships with everybody. And it's super important that I try to, not be one of those takers. I try to give people as much information and try to help people as much as I can, because, I think doing good by people at some point, it turns around in your favor. And I feel like, that's how I built my success in this space. And I'm always just trying to see how I can help people grow. And if I can give them some strategy that would be helpful, that's always been my goal, and it's helped. And it's my attorney, I've known him since the 4th grade, and then he brought on his partner to help because his partner's another great attorney. When you're creating agreements and doing all that, that was like one of the first people I got in contact, because I said, look, I need you to be with me on this, and we're gonna bring on different salespeople and this and that. I need you to help me with all of the agreements and help with that. And he's been amazing. When I brought on our CFO, I had conversations with other friends of mine in different areas, and they told me, man, you've got to really talk to this guy. Talked to him, met him briefly, then re-engaged with them. And then he didn't have the bandwidth, but then he said, look, I really think you're onto something. Here's another guy that's been a CFO for Sony and all these other organizations. Let's give him a call. And so then I ended up getting 2 CFOs for the price of one.
Wow.
And so the experience we had with that team, and then bringing on Aaron, like that was like a blessing, right? And Aaron had an amazing CTO that had that relationship with, working at the Department of Defense and structural engineering, background engineering, and AWS and things like that. Like I don't know how you could put another team like that together, that just happened to kind of fall in perfect, harmony, and it helped us do an amazing thing. And it really stemmed from a gentleman. I don't know if you're familiar with a guy named Dan Pena. He's a little
Yeah. No, very outspoken, right?
very outspoken, real.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I came across his information, and he talked about your dream team. Like that was, and it was like one of those things that clicked on me. And he kind of stressed that whole thing, like your dream team, like you've got to have the team. And once you do, like it really works. Like,
is Dan Pena a business guy, or is he a political guy, or does he kind of delve into both? Because I think I know him a little bit for being like a kind of a pretty, like,
he's a
he
little
rubs
off
some
color.
people the wrong way intentionally, right? That's kind of his.
He's like next level at that, but he's great.
Yeah.
I'm okay
agree.
with that, but he's a businessman, and he's worth like $500 million or something crazy. He has a castle in Scotland. He's from LA though. And you listen to his story. He's a high performance coach is what his thing is. But then recently, I think he's trying to get into politics in Scotland, and I'm not sure what else he's doing, but he still has, and I think he's 80 now, and he still has, these coaching events at his castle that you can go to his castle, cusses you out, he pushes you and tries to get you to a whole different level. I wish I had I like looking at from afar, but I don't know if I could handle someone cussing me out like that, personally. But he's great. I love what his drive and what he's pushing as far as business. And it was super helpful for me.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
so
we got to get Dan Pena as the president of Scotland, Conor McGregor as the president of Ireland, and we've got, a UK that's just going to be going wild here in the next couple of years. I mean,
It would be wild.
Yeah, so you thought about building the team and everything and how it all came together. I mean, clearly, I think what you said is probably one of the most important things is, you focused on being a giver, and helping people out. Then you focused on making sure you built relationships that you worried about long term. There's so many people that come into business and they think, how can I make money quickly right now? And that might be by, you maybe make some money by screwing somebody over, but you've now lost all the ability to make as much money as possible with that person if you worked it the right way. And I think that's probably what you did and what led you to the success. Now you had an AutoMiner, you sold it, got yourself a bunch of money. I don't know. What'd you do after that? Did you go and buy a castle next to Dan Pena's over in Scotland, or did
No,
you?
no, no. I sat there for a little bit, but when we did that exit, I was still working at a store and it didn't make any sense to leave. I just stayed there. I said, I could retire at this group. I mean, this is a great group. Love the ownership there, good people. But it was one of those things that I was like, I'd love to get back to Texas. So I ended up moving to Texas, and I've been here for the last 2 years now. And I parked myself into another store and started helping run a Mercedes-Benz store for the last 2 years, and did well there. We sold a bunch of cars and helped them. And during that time, I was thinking, what, this is a good place to kind of just retire, run the store, make good money. Oh, nope. And that way I could just, I'm still, 45. I'm not that young, but I still consider myself pretty young. I just thought, I could retire here. I'll be good. But then I ran across voice AI and I thought, man, the light bulb hit. And I said, this could change a lot of things. And so that's kind of where I'm at today.
Yeah, I
So
think you had the same revelation that me and Matt had when we heard a really good voice
yeah.
AI too. We're like, well, because we have obviously a virtual assistant business. Where we hire a bunch of virtual assistants. And then you hear an amazing voice AI that doesn't sleep, doesn't take breaks, doesn't have doctor's appointments or anything like that. And it sounds better than a virtual assistant. You're like, well, now, virtual assistants are screwed, unfortunately. And that's the way it kind of goes. And it sucks to say that because we have a lot of great people that we work with. But the truth is we've seen so many people that will hand over their virtual assistants to us. Like, hey, don't need them no more. They're great people and they're great workers, but I'm getting a voice AI that's doing 10 times what they're doing for half the cost of what they are. And it's just that it's the way that goes. And so we heard the same thing as it goes into that. So, I mean, obviously you're an entrepreneur and you're like, hey, you've been an entrepreneur before, but you still work at the same time. But you're like, okay, here's another opportunity for me. You're seeing an opportunity that comes up.
And reality is my whole goal was to stay in the store. And I was like, man, do I really want to go and knock on doors and do all that? I know how to sell business to consumer. Business to business is not my forte. But we came at a point, and I was basically at an impasse. Like I had to decide, okay, Chris, do I hire someone? Because initially that was a thought. Let's hire someone to do it. I thought we had someone at one point, and then things transitioned and didn't happen the way we thought it would. And so I came at a point where, look, I can, help myself, or I can go all in and see how I can help everybody. And this is not just, as much as I love automotive, this can help sales just in general of how to, help customers and clients and everybody, with the thing that people hate the most, and that's follow-up.
Right. Absolutely.
So before we get too deep into the voice AI, because Matt and I have explored this quite a bit, and I'd love to hear your perspective. You and I have kind of already spoken a little bit about it. I want to take one step back. We went to the acquisition. Look, I don't know how much the acquisition was for. I'm sure we could find it. I'm sure all those things are public. Matt assumes that you made a very good amount of money, and maybe, hopefully, in that amount of money you made, you could have chosen to retire. I'm always interested in the person like Dan Pena, who's worth $500 million, who is 80 years old, who's still grinding it out. And everything I just heard you say, Chris, is the acquisition happened. I was working in a store. And to me, I would like to think, I know my wife would like to think, that if I just sold a company that I founded, that the next day would not be me going into a car dealership and running as a general manager that I'm thinking I want to do. My wife would think of how many countries can we go visit and take time off. But it sounded to me like, Chris, your mind was, okay, mission accomplished, box checked, what's next? I am still going to show up to the store to make that impact. And maybe that impact was, how can I help this store grow? Who can I impact? How can I make this next thing? And it sounds like when you made that acquisition and that ink dried from the acquisition from Pure Cars, you didn't yet have the next thing. Your next thing was the store. So I would really just love to understand the psychology of sale happens, ink dries, check gets deposited, Hopefully it's great money. What was the next day, or what was that day? Was there a celebratory dinner? Was there, I'm going to take some time off, or was like, okay, cool, back to the grind?
Well, I guess the biggest thing for me was I still got to pay a big check to the government now. And that really just hurt my soul, especially when they weren't with me for 8 years while I grinded it out and kept dumping a bunch of money and using the funds from the company to make more, like to get and grow and scale and bootstrap the whole thing. They weren't there for 8 years. But the minute I sell it, they're like the big mafia and say, hey, I need you to give me half of what you just made.
Hopefully you lived in Texas then, so you didn't at least have to do state income tax for that big drop.
Yes. So that still did help, but it still did not feel good. And I hate it every day. I still think about it to today. And it just bothers me.
I can imagine.
And so for me, it was easy to say it was good. You pay off your house, you do things like that. But, and then that's another, sore subject, right? You pay off your house and you still got to rent it from the government. Like it's just,
yeah. So property tax through the roof right now in Texas. Yeah.
It never ends. Right. So it just, you look at it and I still can't make sense of it. So I said, you know what? I'm not done yet. I got to keep going.
Awesome. So yeah, you started this voice company now. And so the voice company here, what was so it sounded like follow-ups was a problem, obviously, to make sure that follow-ups keep coming in, because I think it's probably the most dropped part in any sales company's experience or process. I'm sure it's where you get the most sales at. It's funny enough, but it's probably one of the hardest parts that people keep up with. Obviously the CRM helps out, but that's probably one of the biggest things you see. I help coach a lot of people who want to do real estate wholesaling and things like that. And like, oh, I put up 5 offers a day. I'm like, great. How many are you following up with after that? And they're like, oh, where's your CRM? What's your CRM look like? Where are your follow-ups at? And they don't have any process down from that. Like, how do you know? And so that all our deals, not all of them, but most of them come from us being consistent on the follow-up, because you don't know how many people will change their mind, especially with the real estate market as it is now, where people were asking what they thought the property would sell for a year ago, but it's not happening because the market has changed. And after a while, it's going to sit there, and then eventually they're going to go, all right, well, I got to get realistic and I got to get rid of this property. I can't pay this mortgage and this other mortgage at the same time. And you're that person that followed up with them over and over again. So now they call you back. And people don't get that part of it. So now you have a voice AI that's going to come and take care of that for you. It's called Ignite Ups, right? Tell me through the process of what you guys haven't done. I know you've been developing for a while now, and your process through the development and where you are right now with it.
And one more thing before you answer, Chris, just to clarify, if I'm wrong, voice AI is a part of the AI system and the solution, but it's not limited to just the voice side. There's a lot of other AI integrations in use cases outside of the voice, but a voice is probably the hardest thing to differentiate yourself. Would you agree, Chris?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Like right now, there's a lot of people that have email only, SMS only, and we have all those capabilities. The voice agent, though, is one of those things that people get and, leaves a voicemail and people call back and, who are they going to call back? Are they going to call back the dealership or the store you're at? And that's where the AI is super helpful and can convert customers and qualify them and get them to the next step. And that's our strong suit. I think about the majority of the AI companies have really good tech available. They've got a lot of good process. My challenge with a lot of these tech-enabled companies is that they've never sold a car, and they've never been, know the countless interactions that we have as sales professionals, as car sales professionals, and they don't know the word tracks. And some of them might try to do it, but at the end of the day, there's a cadence to it. There's when to do it. And when we train our agents how to interact, we're seeing big results.
So how long have you been developing this?
12 months.
12 months. Gotcha. And what's it look like on sales wise, and how you guys been doing so far? And how have you seen any jump in numbers or a tank in numbers at first? Because I want to know, because when you release the AI bot, you want to obviously compare it to what's happening with a real human being to what's happening to the bot.
I'll give you some. So they say the average salesperson gives up after the third contact, and 92% of all, or 80% of all deals happen after the fifth contact. Right. And so when you start looking at the numbers, there's a real big opportunity. Like, give you an example on third party leads industry, a lot of them close at 3%. Right. But if you just followed up past 60 days, you could get that close rate from 3% to 8% or to 10%. And that's
so for clarification, Chris, I would like to clarify this, because some of our audience will be automotive focus, and I understand what you're saying, but some of our audience won't. To clarify, you said after 3 connections, and maybe what's lost in that, just to clarify, connections actually a two-way conversation. Is that what we're referring to, right?
No, I'm saying like after even 3
Attempt.
attempts.
Because
Yeah,
they're
there's a
in
difference.
most cases needing to be 10 to 20 attempts to even get 3 two-way conversations. And so we're not even talking about a conversation. We're talking about actual just an attempted connection that likely is not a successful one.
Percent. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that's the thing, right? And when I look at if we look at just automotive, 50% of all daily work plans never get completed daily. Like there's a lot of like issues there with follow up. The salespeople are the same problems I had at the store. We were doing 700 cars, 1100 cars, 700 cars. They were all the same issues. Trying to get your salespeople to follow up, make the phone calls, do all the things that as a sales professional work, and they don't do it. And yes, you hold them accountable, you take away spiffs if they don't do it, and half the time they pencil whip them. So you don't really know, you know what I'm saying? And it's just one of those things, it's
Let's be
heavy
honest
lift.
with our guests too. I would say that the biggest problem I've had in managing hundreds of salespeople in my career is getting them to use the damn CRM. Like just use the damn CRM. Like just that alone is a challenge.
But
And it's
even look at why they have those problems, all right? They think they're spinning their wheels because 20% of the customers actually answer. So if they make 10 calls, they're leaving 8 messages, right? So then they're like, oh, I just left another message. And then if you ever hear what they say on those messages, they're terrible. Never going to call back. It's just like, it's just not a good interaction, right?
right. So when you can teach the AI to do every follow-up with the perfect message, the perfect way, every time, and it's updated in the CRM, and it learns from what it did in the last interaction, in the last conversation, and is informed in how they will now present the next conversation. Undeniably, when AI is trained effectively, it will be better than almost every sales rep who isn't going to follow the process. Perfect. Now, I do think, Chris, and I think you'll agree with me, there are hundreds of companies today that are trying to solve this problem in automotive. And the difference is the company and the person who is programming the AI and the intelligence behind it. So teaching the cadence that works the right way. And then secondarily, knowing how to actually, when the offenses run well, what to say that's going to get the best result. So the question I would ask you, Chris, is if you got to pinpoint a perfect dealership to put your tool into, would you say a 500 car a month store that has a broken process is better, or a 500 car a month store that has a perfect process? Which store is better to implement the AI to perfection? The broken process 500 car store, or the one that's already has a really, really good process?
I think the answer is both.
Okay.
And let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because when I was at a store selling 1,100 cars a month, as efficient as we felt we were still pretty inefficient. I could still open up a call and listen to it. And I'm one of those guys that was obsessed with listening to phone calls because I just know how high you can convert phone calls. I would review leads, see how they interacted, what the metric and what you needed to say to get that customer to respond, the right hooks, the right engagements, and it would still be terrible. Like I'd get my best salesperson, my worst salesperson. And this is every store I've ever gone into. And I'll look at last week's interactions. And how many of those times did I pull up a lead, whether it was a lead, phone up, or walk in from last Wednesday, for example, and today's Wednesday? How many of those gave up after the third attempt?
Mm-hmm.
Every one of them. And it was just like clockwork. It didn't care if I was in a high volume store or a low volume store. Get the best salesperson, get the worst salesperson, go to a random lead from last week and see when they gave up. And it's like clockwork. Everybody gives up.
Yeah, because look, at the end of the day, salespeople are humans, and humans in general are going to go through the path of least resistance. They're going to go to where they feel like there's going to be an opportunity for low-hanging fruit. And that's kind of, for the audience that knows kind of what I do, one of the things I do is I offer an outsourced BDC to stores. And the biggest need we solve is when you have a talented sales organization who isn't willing to do the follow-up. So they hire me and my company to come in and do the things that their team is just not going to do. And they can sit there and beat their head against the wall all day long to do endless follow-up, but they're not going to do it. It's no different than when I started in managing a sales territory with veteran sales guys. I used to try to say, hey, let's go out and do some cold calls, guys. And they're like, no, I'm going to work my referrals. Like, I'm going to work my network. Why am I going to do that? I'm still going to hit my quota. Why am I going to beat my head against that? So we just built an SDR team to do the cold calls that my veterans weren't going to do. And the better your team is skill-wise, the less they're going to be willing to do those things that they feel like aren't going to be the return on the investment. So, Chris, what I would say from here, what I'm interested to know is, we've talked a lot about the team building. We've talked a lot about where you are, what the technology can do. And you don't have to sell me on it because I'm already convinced this is where the business is going. And I think that the more dealerships that get there are going to absolutely see the advantage. But what I do know about the dealership world, you know this, I know this, Matt knows this, is the automotive space is slow in comparison to the general society. One of the reasons Matt and I created our voice AI for our real estate business way before we would ever consider doing it for the automotive side is because they're much more willing to adopt technology to advance their benefit. What I would guess is that because there are so many options out there trying to do it, so many bad options, you're going to have to overcome the bad options out there, and knowing that dealerships are just generally slow to adopt to technology. So what's your plan to get customers just to say, I'll give you guys a shot? Is it you're just saying, hey, let us prove it? I've got these case studies, or are you just going to leverage, I provided a great product and a service in the past. I've got a good reputation. Trust me. What's your angle there?
Right now, I'm bringing on pilot stores and I'm giving them special pricing. And, with these other companies, majority of them are being heavily funded by big conglomerates and VCs, and they're highly invested. And I'm going to come in a little bit more nimble, being able to do things that they may not have on their roadmap. And I'm really living in a space where nobody is really focusing their attention on. And right now, I think that's where I can have the biggest help lift for the dealer. So I'll give you an example. And the reason why people don't really do it, and I think you hit the nail on the head, people would rather focus on their referrals and their nurturing their owner base. So give you an example, like if you get an internet lead in automotive, that closes, traditionally 10 to 15%, right? The high performing stores can close at 25%. On internet. And a lot of people can say, well, we weed out the junk leads and this and that at 10 to 15%. And then phone ups, they convert at 30%. And then if they walk in and they convert at 40%. So most people are saying, well, I'm just going to focus on these 40%. They're a lot easier. I'm going to close them. Well, that's what our AI is solving, because we're doing all the heavy lifting that normally takes a lot of effort, because you're going to have to close. You got to close these people. So we're going to nurture those people, bring them in your store. And as a result, because we've nurtured them and we've had the conversations with them, by the time they go to your store, they're going to be closing at 30, 40%.
Right. Yeah, that you take away all the extra crap, like Matt said, the veterans that don't want to do the low work, the work that feels beneath them because they're still hitting their quotas and stuff like that. If you take that away, you give them opportunities to close. You now took the best part of that veteran person and gave them more opportunity to do that thing. Same thing on the real estate side. What we're doing here, we have closers. If we can take away all of the regular conversations that you would have to have just to see if someone wants to sell or not, and just give them people that are ready to sell, then you just get closes done. And that's our goal with the AI bot also, is just to make sure that when you just open up your CRM and throughout the day, you just got a lead pops up, says ready to go. And you call that lead and get it closed and move on.
That's the goal. But I'm not trying to be a master of everything. There's a lot of companies out there that I want to do it here and I want to do this. I'm just trying to partner with the right people that are already doing it really good in certain areas, and we can build a whole flow for the dealer to do exceptionally better than most.
So I
Awesome.
think that kind of ties directly into where I would love to take the conversation to in our last 5 or 6 minutes here, which is we talked about the importance of building a team. We talked about you getting the problem identified and then the solution doing. You spent the last 12 months developing a product. You're now at the phase where you're testing it and you're piloting it, and then we're going to go into the dealerships. One of your biggest advantages you had based off of what you said earlier is bringing in your team that you have. Right now, to me, at least so far, it sounds like maybe this is a you show without a team. So it sounds like likely in the next 3 to 6 months, the phase will be starting to fill out that team. As you do that, again, what is the focus of the team? Where do you plan to go? Where do you think your needs are? Do you plan on putting the whole crew back together? Or do you plan on kind of putting a new dream team together in that sense?
I think for the most part, if they have the bandwidth, I'd love to bring them all back on board. And right now, like I did with the AutoMiner, I make sure that it's bulletproof to a certain degree. And right now, I feel like it's there already, but I just feel like I need to get to 50 stores. Once I get there, I'll have more information, because as smart as it is today, in 90 days, it's going to be even smarter. By this time next year, it'll be the best salesperson ever.
Yeah. We had a guest came on a couple of weeks ago, and they used a quote that has absolutely stuck with both Matt and I: is AI today is the worst it will ever be forever.
100%.
And tomorrow it will be exponentially better and it will continue to grow. I don't know if you guys have seen Grok that just came out this weekend and some of the advancements there. I mean, the advancements in the growth is crazy that's happening there. Now, let me ask you this question. This will probably be my last one. In the past, with AutoMiner, you decided to bootstrap it. Is the plan to continue to bootstrap this, or is the plan eventually to do like a lot of other people are, was to receive funding? And then secondarily to that, is the plan for this eventually to also move towards an acquisition, as in most companies in automotive eventually get acquired by one of these gorillas? Or do you have any aspirations to run this as a long-term solution and become one of those companies who are not net looking to be acquired, but maybe more being a person who is looking to acquire some of the other ones and forming a more robust platform? What are your 5-10 year plans?
Right now? Yeah, right. Bootstrap it as long as I can until it's to a point where, I can get it where maybe I bring in strategic partners, and it's really just integrate with some of the technology that's already doing pretty good in AI. Like, I've got a good friend of mine that's done exceptional in service scheduling, and at some point we're going to have conversations with them and see if we can put something together. I've got other friends that are in other areas that do pretty good in certain AI things, and I'm not trying to be the one solution for everybody. I'm trying to partner with the right people that are already developed certain areas that I'm not even trying to go after. Like, I just want to be a solution where I can talk to other agents and we can work together, and the AI can help the dealership be more efficient and sell more cars and service more customers, and do it in a way where it's taking care of the customer.
Okay. And you're looking to get acquired again and then buy that castle next to Dan Payne?
Yeah, by Dan Payne is one.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know. Right now, this is fun, and we'll take it as far as I can go.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm sure you don't want to live next to that guy who'll cuss you out. If you need to. Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we roll out here? Is there a way for anybody to maybe check out the AI, test it out? What you got going on right now? Anything like that?
You can go to igniteups.ai, and then also you can check out one of my latest books I wrote on. It's on Amazon, and it's called "Sales is Dead: The Rise of AI." And it's either sales is dead or is sales dead, and so that's kind of the take on it. And I think the short answer is it's going to make your best salespeople even better and your worst salespeople amazing.
Yeah, awesome. And then anybody else who in the lower end side are just gonna have to find another avenue to go down. Unfortunately. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it. We'll make sure we put all of your social medias in here so people can get a hold of you on that. And we'll add an Ignite ups.ai also, the link for people to check that out. I want to check it out. I would love for us to send over our voice technology too. Just kind of get your feedback on it and what you think on it will be great.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah. So if anybody got anything from this like we did, please like, share, subscribe, comment, hit the bell icon. We drop this episode every Friday about 9 a.m. Eastern time. Let us know what you guys think about the episode. Chris, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.